This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Mem Aleph, and Baruch Hashem, as you begin a new month here in the Daf Yomi world, we like to dedicate today's shir and the shirim for the month of Teves and its incredible schos aliyas neshama for Yelev ben Rabbi Ya'akov, Baruch Hashem, being dedicated by his son, who we are zeicha to learn together with. B'siyata d'shmaya, Aryeh ben Yaakov, a yid whose yahrzeit is today and the first of Teves, was zeicha to learn in Radin, believe it or not. B'siyata d'shmaya, the learning the entire Chabura, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam should bring Rabbi Aryeh ben Yaakov to higher in place in Gan Eden Shalmayla, be a Militz Yashar for his son and for the entire Mishpacha, and ultimately for the entire Chabura, Torah and Chanukah, B'siyata d'shmaya. Quotes the din of the Mishnah. The din of the Mishnah of a shar ha'Itztabin einoi chayev misa. Shar Itztabin meant a fighting or a bull that's being trained to kill, an ox of the arena, literally. Said the Mishnah is not chayev misa. The reason is, the Mishnah explained, because the pasuk says if it gores, which clearly implies it not if it's being taught how to gore. So Yibayalu asks the Gemara, Ma'u legabe mizbeach. What is the status of this shar? Of this shar or stabin, this shar that is trained to kill? What is its status regarding being brought as a carbon? Rav Amar kosher, Ushmuel Amar pasul. Machlokes Rav and Shmuel whether this animal is a kosher for a carbon or not. And now the Gemara explains in the last narrow line of Mem Beis, Rav Amar kosher anasu, Shmuel Amar pasul, Hari nevad ba'avera. Lamaisa didn't avera, Lamaisa it killed. So Meisve asked the Gemara on Shmuel's pshat that it's pasul. It says the Torah min habehema, with regard to carbon, it should say from an animal. Lahaitzi, and from here it says the price that we exclude an animal is not only be brought as a carbon, as a roiveav, as a nirva. If an animal had relations with a human being, whether it was by force or whether not, meaning whether the human being forced it or not, min habakar, says the pasuk. What does that teach us? That comes to exclude an animal that was worshipped as avodah zarah. Min hatzayin, that comes to exclude lahaisi es hamuksa, that comes to exclude an animal that is designated for a carbon to a avodah zarah. Umin hatzayin lahaisi es hanogeach, that excludes an animal that killed a person. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Shimon, Im nemar roiveya, lama nemar noigeach, v'nem noigeach, lama never roiveya. Why do both of these psukim, why do we need two different miyats in the Torah for roiveya and noigeach? Says the Gemara, because each one has a unique quality. Explains the Gemara, 5 lines into the white lines. Reveya asma inis kiratzin. When it comes to reveya, it doesn't make a difference whether the act of doesn't make a difference when it comes to reveya nirva, whether the act of sodomy, whether the act of bestiality was done by ines or biratzin. Noigeach. Whereas when it comes to goring, there is a difference. Clearly says the Brisa, that if the animal was forced to gore, is not the same thing as biratzin. And on the flip side, there's a special din by goring that you pay kaifer, which is not relevant to a case of reveya v'nirva. Lefikach, therefore, says the Brisa, end of Brisa. So now the Gemara articulates the kasha on Shmuel. Katanimi azreveya isa ba'ines kiratzain noigeach loy asa ba'ines kiratzain. By noigeach, we do not equate the two. Lamai Hilchasa, says the Gemara, lav carbon. This is not teaching you a din about carbon. That if it was ba'ines, if the animal was coerced, was forced to gore, then it would still, yes, be kasha for a carbon, a kasha and Shmuel that said it's possible? Says the Gemara, Loi, that's not the din. Likatala, it's referring to the chi of misa that the animal has from the fact that it killed is only if it kills beratzain and not if it kills be'oinis. Hachinami, says the Gemara. This is logical. Why is this logical? Carbon. If you're going to tell me that this Bryce is teaching me a din of carbon, the Bryce is said with regard to Negeach who do not make an oines like a ratzain. But says the Gemara, Lav oines dideiksiv, Lav ratzain dideiksiv. What does that mean with regard to a carbon? It is irrelevant between oines and ratzain with regarding to Negeach, says the Gemara. Elalav likatala. So proves the Gemara that it must be referred to Katala, Kasha, and Shmuel, and the Gemara defends the opinion of Shmuel. 4 lines from the Bayram, says the Gemara. Let's delve a bit deeper into this brisa. Amar bar Negeach mishalim es hakoifer ravea einoi mishalim es hakoifer. The din of koifer is only a din if the animal gores, if the animal kills, and not if the animal has relations. Hey Chidami, says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that the case referring to an ox sodomized a woman, an ox was together, had relations with a woman, and then it killed her, malikatala bekarna, malikatala beravia. Who cares? It killed a woman. What's the difference how it killed a woman? Ela de Rava v'loikatla, it's referring to the case of Rava, but didn't actually kill the woman. Hi, Mishalim Kaifer, Mishum Deloikatalo. Says the Gemara, but then the reason why it doesn't pay Kaifer is simple, because it didn't actually kill the woman. Kaifer is only when it comes to killing. So what would the Hava Hamina have been? What else is the Gemara explaining? Explains the Gemara, who? Amar Abaye on the last line, Lo'ilam de Rava v'loikal. Dasuye lebeidina v'katzluha. Case is where the woman was later brought to court, and the woman was killed because of her act of being together with this animal. So therefore, what? Ma'udetema, I would have thought it to be turned over to Mem Aleph Amid Aleph. Kiman de Katala Dami. I would have thought that since the ox caused this woman to be killed, caused via the fact that this woman had relations with this ox, that's the reason that the woman ended up getting killed. So I would have thought that maybe at some level it's considered that the shar, quote unquote, killed this woman, Dami. Kamash Malah, and that's the chiddush that no, it's not considered that the shar killed this woman. Rava Amar, that's teretz number 1 of Abaye. Says Rava, comes along Rava, and Rava says, Oilam de Rava Vikat. The Brisa is indeed talking about a case of Rava Vikatla, that the animal had relations with this person and thereby killed them. And you ask, Malikatola bekarnaya, Malikatola beravia. What's the difference how the animal killed the Maisa killed? So therefore, if the animal killed, the din should be the same. Explains the Gemara, no, there is a fundamental difference. What's the fundamental difference? Karen kavanasa lahasik. When an animal gores, it's having kavana to do damage. Hi, but this animal that killed this woman, not via the Karen, but rather via the act of relations with the woman. Hi, kavanasa lahanos atzmahu. Just like kavana for its own benefit. Says the Gemara, and what is this machlokes? But my pligi, what's the machlokes? Abai and Rava had explained this brisa. Beregel shadarsal gabetinok v'chatzer anizik. This is comparable to the case that we had in Daf Chavav of an animal that trampled upon a child in the property of the nizik. La Abaye, according to Abaye, mishalim kaifer. The Rava le mishalim kaifer, because it did not have kavana, according to Rava, to kill. Rather, it was a case of regel who was walking in the courtyard. Tanya kavase de Rav Shara Stavon, going back to the Machlekes Rav and Shmuel, whether the Shara Stavon could be brought as a carbon, says the Gemara. Let's bring a Raya to Rav. That while Shara Stavon Einoi Chayim Misa V'Kasher Ligam Zech Neisheukim Ba'usa, because as if it was coerced, an explicit Raya to Rav that the Shara Stavon is indeed able to be brought as a carbon. And with that, we begin another Mishnah on the top quarter of Mem Aleph Amud Aleph, dealing with a shar, again, that kills. Shar shenagich Adam, says the Mishnah. Umeis, shar gores a person and a person died. Muad mishalim koifer v'tam pater minat koifer. If the shar was a muad that it did this act of goring multiple times, then the halacha is it pays a special din of koifer. Whereas if not, if it's a tam, it does not. It says the Mishnah, whether it's the first time the shar gores, whether it's the fourth time the shar gores, it is obligated misa, we kill the shor. And obviously the simple kasha that wait, if the shar is chayiv misa the first time it gores, how do we have her come to a case that the shar is a muad, because it should have been killed at the first act of goring? The Gemara will jump onto that in a moment. But first, the Mishnah concludes, v'chein beben, v'chein bebas, so too, if the victim that the shar gored was a child, a minor, a boy, or a girl, the same halacha applies. Nagach eved oyama, if the shar gores a slave or a maidservant, noisin shleishim salim, there's a special din that you have to pay for an eved 30 selah. We learned about this in Kedushin. Regardless what the value of the shar is, the act of killing the shar, the hast obligates to pay shleishim slaim shel eved. Says the Gemara, the obvious kasha that we articulated on the first part of the Mishnah. If the shar gets killed the first time it does its act of goring, how could it ever come to case of mud? And to this kasha, we're going to have many terutzim. Says the Gemara, teretz number one, Amai Rabba, what's the reason how the shar makes it to a mud if it should have been killed after the first act of goring? It didn't actually kill 3 people, but it's that we are oimed, we evaluate, we assess that the shar would have tried to kill 3 people. It happens to be the people ran away, but we see the tendency of the shar without it actually even goring, and that's where it becomes to be a mud. Teretz of Rav comes along Rav Ashi Amar Amdu Alav Klamu. No, that doesn't do anything. And says Rav Ashi, it gored 3 people, but it didn't kill them. It put them into a matzav of sakana, and therefore, says Rav Ashi, that's why the animal is considered a muad, even though it didn't actually kill 3 people. Rav Zvira Amar Teretz number 3, koin shaharag shloisha behemois. Its case is that it killed 3 animals. It says Rav Zvira mula behemois have a muad li adam. That creates a muad li a person, and that's the reason why it kills a person. It pays a kaifer. Elam Rav Simi, says the Gemara. Rav Simi has a 4th answer. Elam Rav Simi, kigoin, for example, shaharag shleisha oivdei koichavim. It killed 3 goyim. Umur la'akam avi mur li Yisrael. It teretz of Rav Simi. Elamar. And of course, you realize that the words Elo over here are a little bit different types of Elos. Elo Amar, Rav Shimon ben Lakish, explains the Gemara, 5th teretz, Kigoin, Shaharag l'shleisha b'nei Adam. It killed the 3 people, Treifa, but the people were already prone to die, and therefore the shar is not considered to have killed them. Therefore the shar is not going to be put to death, but it will be created into a muad. The treifa have a muad l'shalem, creates a muad for a shalem, a complete person. And the 6th teretz Allah Amar Rapapa comes along Rapapa, and he explains it killed and it ran and it hid in a agam, in a swamp. Meaning, so true that the animal was Chayim Misa. We just weren't able to do it because the animal wasn't here. The Kotel of Arik Lagvan, he kept doing that until it became a Muad. A seventh teretz says the Gemara, V'acha Breider Avika Amar, Kigain, what is the case? Shehuzmu Zaimimei Zaimin. The case is that the animal gored. They testified that the animal gored. But then those Eidim were found to be Zaimimim. And then it happened the second time, and then it happened a third time. And at the fourth time, then new Eidos came out. That original 3 times that they found them to be Zaimim. Again, Zaimim means, how did you testify that this shark killed? You weren't there. Imanu Ayisem, you were with us elsewhere. But then after the fourth goring, a new Eidos came out that the 3 Eidim that made those Eidim and Eidim Zaimim were themselves Zaimim. They were not actually there. And therefore the animal reverts back to its muad status. Says the Gemara, Hanicha, this is good according to Machlekes that we had, Tura Be'inan Shapir, that it's the animal becoming a muad, and it makes sense, because Lamaisa, we have 3 Eidos that this animal gored. Eliyad Gavra Be'inan, if it has to do with the owner becoming a muad, that it knows that its ox is prone to gore. Meimar Amar Le Lavi Adana. The owner could claim, I didn't know. How could I have watched my animal if there was a manu yisem where the Eidos was found to be false? Explains the Gemara, Meimar Amar Le Lavi Adana. Ki goin da Amri kolemas de katal ture gabe have kai. This latter Eidim said, not only did your ox gore and the first Eidim were Zaimim, but you were there. You watched it gore, so you can't claim that you didn't know about the tendency of your own ox because you were there at the time of the Negicha. Ravina Amar, a final and 8th teretz, Makirin es Bal Ashar, Vein Makirin es Ashar, that the Eidim recognize the Bal Ashar, so they give Eidim that, by the way, you have an ox that's very dangerous, and you have to be careful, but they don't recognize which shar it is. Says the Gemara, Mahav Leilam Evad. I don't understand. What could he have done? He doesn't know which shar is the one that gores. They tell him you have one of your oxen in your cattle that is dangerous. And therefore he has to watch the entire things. 8 different ways of explaining the Mishnah, how we could have an animal that has to pay kofer as a muad, even though it should have been killed from the first moment that the animal does an act of goring of negicha. And we continue, we're at the 2 dots, about 15 lines of the wide lines of Mem Aleph, Amud Aleph, V'zeh chayav misa. Said the Mishnah, the time the muad, anytime an animal kills a person, is obligated to the death penalty. Tanur Rabbanan, says the Gemara, for the fact that the pasuk says, and we had this carbon copy of this Gemara in Kedushin, for the fact the pasuk says that the ox is chayiv skila. Any idea? Do I not know that the ox is considered an avela and an avela asur b'achila? And of course, you can't eat this shar after it was skila, after it was stoned, it was pushed off a cliff. Of course, you can't eat it. Why not? Because there's no shechita done to the animal. It was an avela. It died alive, and therefore you can't eat it. So why does the Torah say do not eat the flesh? Because the Torah teaches you that even if you shech the animal after the psak halacha came, it's chayiv skila, you're still not allowed to eat it. Says the Gemara, ainli ela ba'achila. But no, I mean, how do you know if you're allowed to get benefit from it? Says the pasuk, the owner of the shar is naki, is clean. My mashma. What does that mean? Shimon ben Zayma Omer. Kadim Shem the Chaver Yatzin explaining naki mean a chassid, like someone tells his friend, this person went out naki, cleaned out of all his possessions, meaning you can't even get benefit from the animal. Ve'ein loy bahem anashal klum, and he has no benefit at all. Ask the Gemara, how do you know that when the pasuk says you cannot eat this? Talking about a case where the owner shechted it after Gemar din, that you can't eat it. Maybe really if it shechted it, it would indeed be mutter to eat it. What does the pasuk mean when it says you can't eat the flesh? Miskal, Dasar no. And maybe the pasuk is just saying it's upgrading. We know you can't eat it because it's an avela, but the Torah reiterates you can't eat it to teach it's an Isra Hana. Kid Rav Avua, Damar Rav Avua on the first Y line, Amar Rav Elazar. Call Makayim Shnemar Lo Yoichal. Anytime the Torah says do not eat an item, Lo Yiseichlu Echad Isra Achila V'Echad Isra Hana b'Mashma. That they're both. It's the pasuk by using the words Lo Yoichal Lo Yiseichlu. It teaches us you can't have any benefit. Unless the Torah explicates, like it says, says the Gemara, until the Torah explicitly says it like it does by Nevela. Because over there, when it came to the Nevela, the says explicitly that Nevela is a mutter to be given to a ger or to an akum. So ask the Gemara, how do you know how to darshan the pasuk? Explains the Gemara, Amri Hani Mili. When do we learn the pasuk in such a mannerism? Only when the Isra Achila and Isra Hana learned out from the pasuk of Mila Yoichel. But in our case, this Isra Achila we learn out from the fact it says it should be stoned. If you tell me that it lo yisrael teach me Isra Hana, so then the Torah could have just said Nechtav Rachmana lo yehaneh. It could just said don't get benefit. Inami lo yachel es besarai. Es lo yachel es besarai. Lamali, why did it say es besarai? The aval gav the avdi kein basar de shachtei aser. That's the chiddush. And even if he made it in a case that it's similar to mutter meat, how do you do that? By giving it a shchita. That's the chiddush, that it's still going to be aser. Maskla Marzutra. Ask Marzutra 1 second. Maybe this is only true as we turn over to Mimal from Mebei. Says Rav Marzutra, maybe this is only true. Maybe only if the person inspected a stone, he did a bedika on a tzor on a rack, and then he did a shchita with that rack. Maybe that's the only case that this din applies, that it's going to be aser. The avdei kein skilux, you did similar to skilav lech the shachtei v'sakin loy. But maybe if you did a regular shechita with a knife, there'd be no iser to eat it at all. Amri explains the Gemara, atu b'sakin ksiva. Where do you use the Torah say you have to shechita with a knife? Baraisa never says it anywhere. But now we learned in the Mishnah, shechet b'magal yad b'tzor b'kana b'shchitasai. Ksheira, if someone shechs with a sickle, with a rack, with a reed, all these different instruments, the answer is lamaisa. The shchita is kasha. There's no reason to differentiate, says the Gemara, between using a knife, using a rack, etc. Says, okay, great. Now you're telling me that Liachles B'Sar really teaches me both Isra Achila and Isra Hana. Es B'Sarai, Bal Sharnaki, Lamali. Why do we need, Isra Hana mi lo yachal es B'Sarai. Bal Sharnaki, Lamali. Why did the Torah say Bal Sharnaki? Teach us that it went out Naki min a chasav, and he knows Isra Hana. Lahanas Oirai. Teaches you can't even get benefit from the hide. I would have thought B'Sarai Uda Asar Hana. But the high nishtari behana. That you would have thought. Kamash will know that even the heights are aser behana. Balashar naki. Kamash Balashar naki. Well, Hanach Tanai says more 1 second. But this is really a machlokes Tanai. According to these opinions, the mafkla Bal Sharnaki le drasha achrina, that we need this pasuk for a different drasha. Kedibin al as we're going to see. Hanas ayrai minali. So where do we know you can't get any benefit from the heights? Nafkale me es bisare es atafel bisare manihu ne ayrai. That's going to be the heights for the extra word es, which teaches you can't even get benefit from that. Says the Gemara, v'haitana es loy darish. This Tana doesn't nourish in the Ashke. The Tanya Shemna Amsuni, Vamri La Nechemi Amsuni, Ayodarish Kol Esin Shabbat Torah. Kivan Sheigir, when they reached, that's Hashem Lekechatira. Pirish, they stopped. Amr loy Talmid of Rebbe. Kolesh Dirashta Mate Aleim. They didn't dash that S because it sounds like Esel Hashem Elokecha Tira. That S is adding out something else. There's nothing else to fear aside for Hashem. So Talmidim said, what's going to be the other S in that you darshan? Amr Lahem, a famous line. Keshev Shekibalti Ischar Al Adrisha. Just like we got reward for darshaning the Torah. Kach Kibalti Ischar Al Aprisha. We're also going to get reward for not darshaning the Torah. A big marmakim when one doesn't know, there's also a reward to say they don't know. Famously, Rekiva said, no, it comes to include Talmidei Chachamim. Tana Rabbanan, one more small piece of Gemara, Darshing, the pasuk that we just brought up, Ubala Shar Naki, says the pasuk, owner of the shar is clean, Reza Amr Nezek, Naki, Mechatzi Koifer. Now, what does it mean, Naki? It means that there's no Chatzi Koifer payment in such a story. But it itself only pays Megufai. So why do you have to tell me it doesn't pay Chatzi Koifer? So let the owner just say, bring the ox to court and you collect from it. So of course there's no din of Chatzi Koifer. So why do we need a special drasha to teach us there's no din of Chatzi Koifer? Omer loy Rav Eliezer, kach ani beinecha shadini bazeh shechayev misa. Is that how I'm in your eyes? Do you think so little of me that you think that my drasha comes to teach that the case of the chiyuv when the ox is chayev misa ain't din ella kshehemis is ha'adam al pi eid echad ay al pi bailim. It's only in a case where the ox isn't going to be killed. Why not? Because the act was only seen by Nechad or Al Pi Bailim. Al Pi Bailim, says Gemara, 1 second. If it was omitted by the owner, then it's a case of Maida Bekinas, and therefore it should be Potter. Says Gemara, Kasavar, Kofra, Kapara. We're going towards the opinion that Kofra is a Kapara, and therefore even Maida Bekinas will not be Potter. We'll stop over here, and we're going to pick it up from the Tanya Idach, as Gemara has multiple ways of learning the sheet of Rav Eliezer tomorrow, B'siyata Dishmaya.